So nice to see you all again. This will be the last session for this year and this series of 4 get-togethers. But these practices, these techniques, these dharanas that we've been doing over the last few months, they're to be continued. You know, these are tools where you can bring yoga into your daily life, into our daily life actually. It just gives us a chance to stop and we just look at the trees. The trees are changing color in this part of the world. See the beautiful browns and yellows and allow these things to remind us of what an extraordinary experience. It is an experience, this life is. And if we get completely lost in our daily affairs, which we tend to, all of us, I must say, we miss out on the quality and the appreciation of what we have, really. So this is the purpose. And last time I mentioned examples of where we can bring it into our daily life. You know, just in everyday affairs. For example, the other day I was I was outside in the garden, and then suddenly something made me look up, and way up high, I don't know how many hundreds of feet up in the air, there was this kite, and it was just going around in circles, and I kind of looked up and I was watching this kite, and it really kind of took me into such a space. I was kind of almost feeling as though I was the kite flying around, you know. It was quite an extraordinary experience. Very simple, but it just kind of shocked me out of my daily habits, and suddenly, wow, there are more things on this planet than our preoccupations. And it was just a simple little thing. It happens all the time. We need to allow time just to appreciate what we have. And this will give us the courage, of course, to face the challenges that we have. We all have challenges, there's no question. And we're going to go back right to the beginning to what I consider to be the basic practice of the Vigyana Bhairava, of these dharanas, and that's trying to establish contact with the Dwadashanta, the distance. Dwa, 12, Dwadash means 12, and Anta, the extent. This energy field around the body, surrounding the body, which we can feel actually. If we're sufficiently sensitive, we can feel it, especially when we're not very preoccupied. But even if you can't feel it, it doesn't matter. Just the process of trying to feel it or trying to imagine it. Imagination is perfect because it's a means to an end. It's a means to trying to allow us to perceive, to have insight on a deeper level. So it doesn't matter whether it's imagination or you can actually feel an energy field. It doesn't make any difference actually. The main thing is it gives us another reference for perceiving, for understanding. So let's do a bit of practice. Remember, it's 12 finger widths. So either by pushing your thumb against your nose to give 2 extra widths, or extending your little finger out 2 finger widths. But the main thing is focusing on the fingertip, focusing to the exclusion of everything else. And then when you got the idea of it, keeping your attention, it's just a question of practice, where your little finger was. Keeping your attention there. And it doesn't matter if you blink. This is not really tratak. You can blink, no problem. providing you keep your focus at that point where your little finger was. And if you lose it, if you start looking at the wall, then you know that you've missed it. So raise your fingers, raise your hands, and continue the practice. And of course, if you don't need this little technique here, then just keep your hands down and continue trying to feel this spaciousness around the body, approximately 12 finger widths. It can be more, can be less, but the tradition says 12 finger widths. And remember, whether you are practicing this or you're not, as soon as you start to focus, as the eyes are designed to actually, on something in front of you, then you know it's time to get back to trying to establish this sense of spaciousness. And then you can close your eyes, but continue the same awareness, paying attention to the sense of spaciousness around your physical body. And you should quite easily find, it depends on how busy the mind is, but you will find that doing this kind of practice, it tends to reduce the mental chatter. And in a sense, we are nourishing our mind and body. And then you could open your eyes again and imagine you are walking around the local supermarket. Supermarket, I guess, or some busy place at least. You're walking around, and you're not doing this, of course, but you are walking around and trying to apply this technique. Nothing is stopping. People don't know you're doing the practice. You're even getting what you need in the supermarket. But at the same time, you have this sense of spaciousness externally and internally. And noticing that even though you have this sense of spaciousness, that everything is going on perfectly, you're still choosing the goods that you need, you're still avoiding people, walking up and down the aisles. And remember, space is the prime quality, space and energy, I must say, space and energy. These are the prime qualities of this manifest universe in which we live. It's just that as human beings, our mind and our brain and our senses are designed to focus on objects. That's the way we're designed. It has to be like that. So we're just trying to, as yoga practitioners, we're trying to change that tendency. We're not rejecting it, but we're trying to find a way of being more in touch with this underlying space, which is the essence of all things manifest. Yoga says it, Tantra says it, science says it. There's nothing unacceptable, really. And the person taking your money and giving you the receipt, kind of feel a spaciousness there. And if you can, give him or her a smile of appreciation. They need it. They're working really hard. Let them know by your demeanor, and this comes easier with this sense of spaciousness. Let them know by the way that you kind of look at them and so forth, that you appreciate them as fellow human beings on this planet. One little gesture can sweeten up their life, it sweetens up your life too. One small gesture can sweeten up their life enormously. a more formal practice now. Dharana number 5, the energy bath. Taking a comfortable position. And you bring your attention to the place where your body is touching the ground, which we can consider, for simplicity, the Muladhara chakra. And rising upwards in the spine is the Sushumna, the pathway of energy through the chakras. And it's like a white channel going upwards from the Muladhara, from where your body is touching the ground, goes straight up through the middle of the body to reach the crown of the head, through the center of the head, to reach the crown. And now we're going to bring in breathing and Ujjayi Pranayama and Kechari Mudra. So starting with your attention at the Muladhara, and then breathing up with inhalation, feeling as though your attention and energy even is rising in this passage, in this pathway, upwards, focusing on the sound of the breath and the energy of the breath as it goes upwards. And when you reach the crown of the head, you hold your breath for a short while, feeling a sense of spaciousness. And then you breathe out. Remember Ujjayi and Kechari. At least Ujjayi, maybe you don't need to do Kechari, that's up to you. Breathing out. And like a fountain, feel as though the energy associated with the exhalation is cascading around the Dwadashanta. Feel, when you finished the exhalation, feel this sense of spaciousness and energy surrounding your physical body. Hold your breath for a few seconds, and then bring your attention back to the Muladhara, where your body is touching the ground, and you start the second round. So continue in this way with Ujjayi and, if you wish, Kechari. And then when you've finished, just keep your eyes closed, feeling this sense of spaciousness. And if you wish, you can open your eyes and continue this practice, or rather continuing to feel this spaciousness, this energy field which is surrounding your physical body. It's trying to bring these practices into our daily life. And of course, food. We introduced the practice 49, Dharana 49, and that was about food. And of course, this is why in the ashram we chant the Brahmarpanam mantra. It's a good vibration. It creates the appreciation for the food that is there to be eaten, or the drink that is there to be drunk. So if you know it, I mean, certainly mentally at least, chant the Brahmarpanam perhaps. Or if you can't do that, then just sit for 10 seconds before starting, whether you're with people or by yourself, just appreciating the fact that you have this food in front of you, which you've cooked or someone else has cooked, but which is there to nourish the body. So appreciation of food and drink is a very important dharana. Number 49. So there's another practice actually we did, which is also concerned with the Sushumna, and it's dharana number, let me just look, number 12, dharana number 12. And it's a formal practice when you've got a couple of minutes in the morning after your asana, pranayama practice or mantra practice. It's something you can do then to accentuate this sense of availability, spaciousness. So let's sit quietly again, find a comfortable position. And remember, you can't do all these practices. I'm not saying you should. What we're doing now is slightly artificial because we're kind of doing a run through of what we have done. We probably won't cover all of them, but we're doing a run through of what we've done already. If you can do them all, that's fantastic. But I don't think most of you, including me, will have time to do all of them. But it's just to remind you of the practices, and you choose the ones that you really like. So sitting quietly. Again, eyes closed. And imagining a lotus or water lily with the roots at the Muladhara and the slender stem grows up through the water in our body, grows up through our body, symbolically passing through the different chakras which relate us to daily life. And eventually the stem reaches again the crown of the head. And there we have the flower, the blossoming flower, water lily, symbolizing the potential that we all have. The potential that we have to realize what is already there, actually. We don't create anything. We just allow ourselves to be available to what is on a deeper level. So this lotus symbolizes our life, rooted in physicality, our body, moving through all the dramas and events and emotions in daily life, through the chakras, and eventually leading us to realize the blossoming of our potential, realization of what is actually already there. If we have to create it, it's imagination. It doesn't really have any value because it's just a projection of our thinking, our concepts. So we access the stem. This is a specific practice and unique actually to this dharana. which actually I like very much. So we see the stem, it can be green or yellowy green or something. We see the stem, and we can access the stem at any point in the chakra system. So if we access the stem from the Swadhisthana, it brings us to our gender, sexuality. If we access the stem from the level of the navel, we access our vital energy, dynamism. If we access the stem from the heart, we access feeling, love, compassion. If we access from the throat, we access our capacity to communicate and to aspire to allow our body and mind to become a more fitting vehicle. And if we access the stem at the level of the Agya chakra, center of the head, then we start to access thoughts, of course, but we see underlying thoughts, and we access intuition. So choose which level of access you think is pertinent at this moment. It can be something you feel you need to work with, maybe something you are lacking, or something that you just like to be with. So choose the point of access, and you go in to the stem, this solid, fleshy stem. You go in, and instead of being fleshy, you find enormous spaciousness in the stem. It's a little trick, it's imagination, but it helps to open us up to the qualities within the stem which may be pertinent to that particular chakra. I like the reflective dharanas, and I've given you 3 over the last 3 months. I've given you 3 of them, and they are actually, they're good sources of reflection. And reflection, of course, is a contemplation. It's a form of meditation where we focus on a particular issue, maybe a thought-provoking issue. Can be a poem. You know, poems can really touch us and bring us into the moment, and they think, wow, you know, life is far more extraordinary than we think. And of course, this is what yoga is about. It's what these dharanas are about. So we're going to reflect on dharana number 76, which we did in the past. It's a particularly good one because it enforces or reminds us that even though we really feel that it's not correct, it enforces the, for me, fact actually, but it's so, it's something that's so ingrained in our conditioning, the very fact that we're human beings, that we take thinking to be the basis of understanding actually. So the dharana is as follows. I'll remind you. My beloved, and remember this is between Siva and Shakti, as a kind of an intimate sharing here. As if you are a yoga teacher, as many of you are, there is this intimacy, this non-verbal often understanding that comes when you share with students, or if you are a student, that you share with your teacher. There's that kind of deep, often non-verbalized understanding. So this is what these teachings are taking place in that environment. There's a deep sharing, of course, and deep intimacy there, actually. It's a sharing of hearts. And a yoga class, in my opinion, it should be a sharing of hearts. You're sharing things that actually can't be easily quantified. So 76, my beloved, thoughts do not indicate the fundamental cause and basis of everything. I mean, that's shocking. It was shocking for me many years ago because I assumed that thinking, I didn't even question it, thinking is the way to understand. And of course it is, it does give us understanding, but it doesn't give us fundamental understanding. In fact, the thoughts are an obstacle to fundamental understanding. But we're such thought-driven creatures. It's difficult to get a handle on this. It's only when we start to do the dharanas and we create this sense of spaciousness, or we do our yoga practice anyway, we get a feeling that there is something much deeper than our thinking. So, my beloved, thoughts do not indicate the fundamental cause and basis of everything. They're just an aspect of life, and a very important aspect of being a human being, that's for sure. When you completely accept this, you will realize your essential nature as consciousness. We can't do it with thinking. And we may think that we understand that thinking is not the way forwards, but our conditioning is so strong, it's difficult to, it's impossible. Through thinking, it's impossible. The only way is to kind of have this sense of spaciousness, chant a mantra, do asana, meditation, whatever you want to do. Then we can get an intuitive grasp on this, actually. So the first question here is, from force of habit, from other practice, I automatically, mentally use Soham when breathing up and down during the cascade practice. Does this matter? It's not given in the text, but then of course a lot of what I'm teaching is not given in the text. I've elaborated in it on occasions. And actually in the text, the Vigyana Bhairava Tantra, they do give practices which involve Soham. Not in this particular practice, but there are other ones where they use Soham, Hamso. Hamsa, I think they use the word Hamsa, which is a variation of the same mantra, synchronized with the breath. So yeah, though it's not mentioned specifically, so what in this particular dharana, I don't see any reason why you can't breathe in with So and breathe out with Hum, doing the cascading practice. I don't see any problem with it at all, actually. It may suit many of you, actually, but give it a try. If it suits you, then do it. If it doesn't suit you, then do it without the So Hum. So I don't see any problem with that. Second question is there. Do you feel it appropriate to bring in some of these meditation practices to a yoga class without relating them to Advaita, as not everybody is open to the concept, to this concept, but just as a way to opening up the consciousness? Yeah, well, it's this Vigyana Bhairava Tantra belongs to Kashmir Shaivism, actually, which is part of Tantra, but it's an Advaitic form of Tantra. So it belongs to Tantra. So, and Tantra, as we know, is very much about daily life and how to be in touch with a deeper aspect of our being in our daily activities. Tantra is very practical in that sense. So it's not Advaitic as such, but of course the thrust, the finger is pointing at Advaita. In fact, another name for Kashmir Shaivism is Shaiva Advaita. That's another name for this system. It means the Shaiva Advaita. Shaiva means Shiva. It means the way of accessing Advaita through the practices of Shiva. In this case here, the practices given in the Vigyana Bhairava and other Kashmir Shaivite texts. So yeah, it's no contradiction there. And more than that, in a class, it depends on if they're beginners or they're not beginners or what they are. I mean, that's for you as a yoga teacher to decide. But you don't need, if you don't think it's appropriate, to introduce the concepts of Advaita, not at all. The practices are quite able to stand on their own and be done without referring to any philosophical concept, including, of course, Advaita. So I think these practices are great. Probably, it's probably not quite suitable for beginners. I think probably they are more apt, more appropriate to people who've been doing some practice and have got the possibility of interiorizing. So that's up to you as a yoga teacher to use your discrimination. But I don't see why you shouldn't bring in some of these practices. I mean, the practice we've just done, you can bring that, as far as I'm concerned, probably into a beginner's class. Why not? So I think in teaching yoga, I don't think we need to get too much involved in concepts. We do, of course, because we are conceptual creatures. But I think the main thing, and I'm sure most of you have experienced this in your own practice and in your teaching, that it's just getting on with the practice without thinking too much, because we think too much anyway. Just doing the practice and just seeing what happens. Yeah, last night someone asked me a question in the satsang of whether they should have an aim in what they do. And I have mixed feelings about this. I know it's there with the sankalpa, but my feeling, and everyone has their own choice, this is just my feeling, it's better just to do the practice for the hell of it, so to say. Just do the practice and see what happens. And then it's a process of discovery. It's not a process of too much projecting our own needs onto the practice. But some people would disagree, and I totally agree with your disagreement. If you, you know, if you have an aim for your practice, that's absolutely fine. And there is an aim somewhere. I mean, we aim to better health, we aim to peace of mind, we aim for deeper understanding, whatever these are, that's true. But I think, in my opinion, in any class, it's better not to have too much idea of what you want, because what we want as an individual tends to be very egotistical and limited as such. So, and it's based on our existing understanding. So that's up to you. But yeah, to get back to the point, I think most of these practices can be taught in a class. Spaciousness is the next question. For me, there is spaciousness, and it's within and it's outside. It's an underlying spaciousness, which it's not the space. How can I explain this? It's not specifically the space that we see in front of us when we open our eyes. You know, it's an underlying spaciousness, actually. Perhaps a better way of putting it is a receptivity. It's a space, or maybe an attitude we have of being receptive. Yeah, the sheath around us, the energy sheath, the pranamaya kosha, the etheric body, as it's called, that separates and it joins us, actually. It connects us with the wider outside world. but it also, in a sense, separates us. It keeps our individuality. Although actually this is artificial, because on a slightly deeper level, we are not separate beings. We don't have a monopoly on space, on our own space. We are, and we're realizing this even on a physical level in the modern era because of the internet. With the internet, we can contact people on the other side of the planet, and we realize that distance, in this case, it's not that real. It's not as real as we think it is, actually. But yeah, the sheath, the pranamaya kosha, it's a mark-off area. It's a limit. It's the limit of what we consider to be our individuality and the wider world. It is a bit artificial, in my opinion. And whether it's artificial or it's real, it doesn't matter. It's a way of rendering us more receptive. That is the function of this Dwadashanta. It's a way of rendering us more receptive, actually. And it's this receptivity, this openness that allows already existent, but unavailable because we think too much, probably. It's already there, and it allows us to access it. I find it difficult to go inside. Right, supermarket. Go to the supermarket. Or I don't know why I've got supermarkets in my brain at the moment, but supermarket. And I've said many times, I always find airports, because I haven't been in an airport for 500 years since this pandemic took off. But I always find airports are interesting places because everyone's rushing here, there, and everywhere. But actually, I can get a good sense of space. I don't know why. So the question is, I find it difficult to go inside. It's almost like there's no room, if that makes sense. But maybe there is no room. If the mind is so busy, blah, 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 this, that, thinking of this, then probably there is no room. And that's the whole point of yoga. It's kind of encourage us to create some room in there. There's no room. And I think if you find the Vigyana Bhairava Tantra practices inaccessible, then maybe start them with Hatha Yoga. I am really, I'm a great believer in Hatha Yoga, actually. It was my favorite. It was the thing that drew me to yoga in the first place. And even today, I will always practice every morning some Hatha Yoga, asana, pranayama, indispensable. It's fantastic. And it's a way of systematically calming the mind a little bit so that we can go inside and see what is there and to hopefully access this peace. And remember, this deep peace, it's not something we have to create. It's something we access, not the same thing. This deep peace, we don't create it. It's a question of accessing it. So, so my advice to that person is, if you can't go inside because it's too busy, the mind is too busy, there may be other reasons also. Maybe there are things inside which we don't want to know about. That is also possible, The mind is very clever. If we've had trauma in the past, it will find a way of protecting our sanity by putting it out of the way in some nook and corner as a memory, but an unacknowledged memory. So, the mind maybe doesn't allow us to go inside because there's something there which is just not unpalatable. We can't face it at this particular moment. I guess clarity, the question or the non-question, the admonition, I guess clarity is important, but if we read and study the text and then listen to you, surely that's enough. No, you have to practice. No, it's not a study text, that's fine. Listen, okay. No, you have to practice. It's not enough. And even though I'm doing a lot of talking, I do emphasize practice actually. This is a practice-orientated text. See you soon.